if I'm going to build a solution for an SMB, the database, I have to think about how big that database is going to get. And so for one of my clients, we built a customer journey, customer success solution where they've got HubSpot for the obvious things that HubSpot does, sales and renewals basically. But the lifetime journey of this customer with this particular business I work with, it's a 7+ year customer journey. So we've got super complex delivery, customer success, customer support, product enhancements, conference collaboration, social media posts. There's a whole universe of that customer's life outside of HubSpot. And we were able to build a really cool lifetime journey Notion solution that told that whole story, other than the portion that stayed in HubSpot. But that only works in a world like this particular client. They've got about 100 clients because they're large B2B, customer base, and maybe they're going to end up with 200 someday. But if this were a B2C situation and they needed to store 10,000 or 100,000 customers, I think, you tell me, like, I couldn't do that, could I? Like, I would get stopped at just like cloud latency, wouldn't I?
It depends. I mean, there's a lot of depends on like the number of databases you're pulling in from, as well as like what the data is. If it's computed data, there's different ways to like manipulate views so that way, because the way that Notion's working is it's like rendering all the data like on load. So if there's a ton of records or there's a ton of relations to different databases, then it's trying to like essentially do like a deep search in a way of those related databases versus giving you like the bare minimum. And until the user takes action to click on something, then it renders that data. And part of that, I think, is also like offline mode and other things too. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. It kind of just depends because I've done some performance testing around like numbers of records, and there's theoretically some calculation formula that you could build on like if it's a text property versus a formula, if the formula contains four
Mm-hmm.
functions versus 10 functions.
Okay.
There's definitely like a recipe there that you can use to manipulate a little bit, which is like what I'm doing with menu engineering, right? Is like not taking 12 databases and trying to render a bunch of information in calculations, but instead trying to look at the process of like what's static and like what is the timeline when the data becomes static. That way you don't have to like render it every single time and do the computations.
Okay. So maybe I'm being too black and white and a little too simplistic about this. So if I said to you, I have a B2C client and they've got, they want to be able to do this lifecycle management, like I told you, for 50,000 customer records. You would not necessarily say like, yeah, you can't do that. It depends on the kind of data, the kind of functions. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yep. Yeah, and even just
Oh,
like how many databases are related to the customer, right? Because if it's 50,000 records of notes, right, and there's just another database of notes that's related to the client, that's pretty low hanging fruit,
okay.
like, but if there's notes and there's like interactions and like let's say it's calls and meetings and then meeting notes and tasks and like all of these different things, then you're talking about maybe 8, 9 different databases. So for every one, client or record in, the clients or consumer database, then you have 12 other things. Obviously, that's where it gets more complex, and that total number that you can support is going to come down a lot.
So how should I say this? Because this is too simplistic. So quantity and complexity of database. Well, what would you? How would we frame this?
Um, yeah, I would say like data complexity, scalability, complexity, and volume, scalability.
Yeah, and And so this is one of those things that, I mean, I'm definitely learning from you right here in the moment. That is not, there's no easy answer to it. It does depend. And
Yeah.
so, um, guess who I'm going to be calling the next time
Yeah.
I have one of these questions.
And
Uh,
there's a lot of things
okay,
like that too, right? Like some people will say, um, I need this thing built. Can Notion do this? And the answer is always like, you could, and it would
maybe.
be possible, maybe. But usually my response to that is why? Like, why do you want to build it in Notion? Right? Because I try to push back on that of like, what's the problem you're having and why is like you have some kind of solution that you think Notion can solve, but like what is that solution outside of the tool itself? And then if it's not like specific features that the tool has, then maybe there's another tool or maybe it should be designed in a different way. Um, so yeah, a lot of the times that's kind of the answer is like it depends, and it's because of things like this, or to kind of pivot into the next thing as well. Data, right? Like how secure does the data need to be within your team? Is it a whitelist or blacklist model where you don't want anyone to be able to see anything and you're just going to provide permissions when you need? Or is it everyone can see everything and I just want to hide? Because both of those are solutions which both have their own pros and cons and complexities with them, but one's going to fit the model of the data or the company or whoever you're working with better.
Right. Okay. So, um, just to wrap up the last one, uh, that's kind of good news for me because I was ruling out a set of possible, solutions there. I would have like ruled out of hand, and I won't do that going forward. So that's great. Thank you for that.